Welcome back, everybody. I am so looking forward to this conversation with the wonderful Lisa Berry. You know Lisa as actress from Supernatural and many, many other shows. You also know her as a mindfulness and a meditation and life coach. So she combines two of the things that I care about the most, which are the love of acting and the love of self. And I can't wait to talk to her about it. Please welcome Lisa Berry.
Hi, Alan. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's by the way, happy belated birthday to you. I know it's been a few weeks, but happy birthday. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, you're in Canada. We're in Chicago, so it's Thanksgiving Day here. This will be up
Mm.
tomorrow, but it's Thanksgiving Day here. And I normally, this is a show, I think, episode 126. So I always kind of wear, a specific outfit. It's my golf shirts. That's my go-to look. But reading about you and knowing the things that you're doing, I couldn't help myself to wear one of my shirts. I have a clothing business Focus and Shine Out, and it's all up our alley.
Oh, I love that.
So I
Oh, so true. That's such great affirmations. I am strong. I am grateful. I am happy. I'm healthy, balanced, loved, peaceful.
Yep.
Yes.
So I had to wear it. It wouldn't feel right without it. So yeah, and right before this, I did one of your breathe in podcast meditations, which are very.
Oh, wonderful.
So it was hilarious because I did the meditation and then I went looking for the shirt. So my calmness went out the window as I was rifling through my closet to try to find it. But I am very, very happy that somebody on the acting spectrum is talking about mindfulness, because I'm a life coach. I wrote my book on self-love, as I mentioned to you, right? So these are things that I've been talking about, but we haven't really touched the acting community from that perspective. People talk about meditation, and this is certainly not a new aspect within the acting community, but much more than that of who are we? The question that you asked yourself of who am I outside of acting? These are the things that we really need to talk about. So let's talk about it. For the actors who are hearing constantly from everywhere around us, uh, you shouldn't be doing this. This is a terrible industry. It's filled with rejection. Most people don't make a living at it. Why are you doing it? We keep ourselves strong and we keep ourselves kind of in this, whoever is with me on the boat, everybody else get off, because I have a passion, I have a purpose, I'm doing this. Sometimes that becomes tunnel vision, and sometimes we forget about who are we really outside of the career that we've chosen. So how did you come to that path, and what was your answer for it?
Well, that's a really great question and launching off place, because I've worked with a lot of young actors, and the question that I ask before we get started on anything are two questions, actually.
Mhm.
One is, what are your beliefs?
Mhm.
And then they tell me, and that's the list of things that they come up with, of just like, this is insane, you shouldn't be doing this, it's a 1 in a million shot. And then I ask them, did you believe that and then you started living it, or did you live it and that's why you believe it?
Mhm.
And it kind of stops people in their tracks a little bit, because they're like, well, I I don't know. I don't know. I think I started believing what people were telling me before I actually lived it. And and I was like, that's where I would just first start with, tearing apart the old way of thinking, because you don't have to go with the mold that's been put in place for millennia. Um, just the fact that you're even alive as a human being is a 1 in 7 billion trillion shot. So you've already beat the highest odds you could possibly beat. Becoming a working actor is not as unattainable as I think people would have themselves believe.
Mhm.
And I know that there's probably somebody who's just like, Lisa, what are you talking about? It's a really challenging business. And I'm just like, no more challenging than anybody else going after whatever it is that they want to achieve. And I've also had to redefine what success actually was, because a lot of times we get caught up in thinking success looks like XYZ,
Mhm.
and then you get XYZ and you're just like, I don't even like this. And we see so many people who seemingly look happy, and then you find out they're living these miserable lives. And I think, Robin Williams is an example of how you can have it all and still be succumb to the pressures of the mind, and not being in a place where you can feel the way you want to feel about yourself, even though other people, millions and millions of people, love Robin Williams, and he gave so much, but it didn't in the end stop him from taking his own life, which is such a tragedy. And so I think a lot, and I know lots of actors who know other actors who have taken their lives or have, addiction because of this industry or this need to be seen, approved, liked, and have success on a level that is so obvious for other people. So one of the ways that I really redefine being in this business and having it be something that people can aspire to is by really changing what the definition of success is, and making it more a feeling than something that tangibly happens outside of you. I do this with auditions. I do this with when it comes to booking. I never go into an audition thinking I really want to get the job, and getting the job will mean that I did a good audition, because I've done auditions where I'm like, ooh, and they're like, you got it. And I was like, what? And auditions where I'm like, and that's how you do it, folks. And then I don't get it. And I'm like, I'm confused. So I really changed what my definition of success around a good audition was, what success around a booking was, what success around my life was. So as an example, to wrap up the answer to that beautiful question, if I'm able to go to sleep at night and feel at peace with myself, successful. If I'm able to look at myself in the mirror and say, I love you, successful. If I am able to say yes when I want to say yes and no when I want to say no, successful. If I am able to make self-honoring choices that allow me to continue to go with the flow of my life, so I don't ever feel like I'm trying to make something happen, but rather I'm in a state where I'm able to allow what is coming to really happen, and experience it to its fullest, and not get wrapped up in the anxiety of it. And I'm someone who's like, I had moments in my career where I'm like filming 3 shows at the same time. One's filmed in Montreal, one's filmed in Vancouver, one's filmed in Toronto. And I'm like, but these are my dreams coming true. I don't want to be anxious about this.
Mhm.
And so if I'm able to stay grounded through whatever circumstance, successful. So I have a whole different array of qualifiers that let me know I'm achieving what I want to achieve.
Mhm.
And it has nothing to do with anything other people are doing or what I'm even getting from the outside world. They're all internal gauges
Yeah.
to really be able to define what success is for me. And so that lets me stay in this business and be in it for over 15 years now.
Yeah, and that's what I find really helpful, and hopefully other people are listening to this, because we all need to recalibrate that part. It has to be simple, and for those people who are visual, it's not a man pushing a boulder, up a mountain. It's a bird flying. That's what it's
Mhm.
supposed to feel like. So when we're talking about pushing versus allowing, that's what you're supposed to focus on, and the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and saying "I love you" is a really difficult thing for some, and it's difficult thing for us. I know it was for you a little while back. It was for me as well, because we, especially people in this artistic endeavor, we are yearning to be loved and accepted and understood. But what we fail sometimes to understand is that it really has to start here. And that's what
Mhm.
matters. And if you don't do that, it's not going to be filled by anybody else outside of it. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And then from the acting perspective, right? Because the industry and being on set and doing the work, it is emotionally, psychologically, energetically draining. And I loved, I was watching one of the interviews that you've done, and you were saying, hey, before this, I woke up early enough, I got my meditation in, I got my workout in, because those are the things that allow me to do the work and to be me. So
Mhm.
I try to do the same thing. I fail at it constantly, but I don't feel well physically, emotionally, energetically. I don't feel well if I don't actually do it, if I don't do my meditation, if I don't
Mhm.
get my workout in. It just it's too draining, and I am not in a position where I can actually be successful at a job that I'm supposed to be doing. So
Mhm.
these types of reminders, I created a whole kind of a system of reminders for myself that's called Seamless, which you'll understand immediately because it's an acronym standing for get enough sleep, eat well and drink plenty of water, SE. A is activity, so have at least 30 minutes of exercise per day. M is meditation. L is the three different types of love: loving yourself, loving others, and loving your day.
Mhm.
SEAMLE is expand and grow, because we cannot be in this mode. We have to continue expanding our horizons, because that's where you really understand who you are as a person. And then you can bring more into your life and
Mhm.
your work as an actor. And then the two S's are stress reduction, and then sunshine and fresh air. So it's kind of my cheat code and an easy way to remind myself of things I need to do on a daily basis in order
Mhm.
to be sane, in order to be grounded, in order to be well. So, what do you do to kind of remind yourself to go through it?
That's so great. I'm an acronym kind of person as well. I created a course called Breathe, a lifestyle course,
Mhm.
and I'm really excited to launch that this year, just before we go into 2021,
Perfect.
because it's not just about something we do once.
Mhm.
It is a lifestyle that we need to learn to embody. And so Breathe stands for belief, rest, energy, awareness, truth, healing, and expansion. And I have all of these modules that we go through so that we can really mine how it is that we want to feel on any given day and take back our power in terms of how it is that we can learn
Mhm.
from the emotions we're sitting in that are uncomfortable, and learn to sit with those emotions and learn to expand into greater versions of ourselves so that we're able to see ourselves as we've never seen ourselves before, and to constantly be practicing expanding our courage into new realms of ourselves and letting ourselves be propelled further and further into a reality where we can see ourselves achieving X and doing Y and being in those kind of experiences that let us feel as though the promise that was placed in our heart is tangible. So I love acronyms because I think they just help us really remember what to do, and breathe has always been something that I became very passionate about because it was really a domino effect. I started off with you got to think positively, and then it was like, but why? And it was like, well, because you want to have a positive life, and so of course you have to have a mindset that is in alignment and harmony with your desires. And I was like, okay, great. What do you do when you can't think? Like when you can't get out of your way? Like my mind is running a mile a minute, and I can't stop being negative. How am I supposed to stop being crazy? How? Tell me. And nobody was really giving me concrete answers. They were all in this beautiful ethereal landscape that was like, oh, that's so lovely. Be the change you want to see. But what does that mean? Like specifically, what do I do with my hands? And because I'm an actor, I would play games with myself and have a moment in life where, a bill from the government would come in, and I was like, oh my God, How am I supposed to pay that? I didn't know. And you get hot immediately. And I remembered saying, cut, that's great, Lisa. I really love what you're doing. And I would play this director actor moment with myself and just hire myself out for a moment and be like, cut, I really love what you're doing, Lisa. That's great. But this character has the money. This character can afford this bill. So I want to just take it back. And I just want you to open that letter and just be fine with it. This isn't the scene where we go all like, this isn't that scene. This isn't that scene. This is a scene where you can totally afford it and things are turning around for you. And so I just want you to play that. And if I was on set or if I was in the rehearsal hall, I would know what to do. I would know how to physically change my state of being to go from being like, oh, I'm happy about this. Oh, okay, let me try it again. Oh, cool, okay. I'll take care of that. And just change your state immediately. So I really started hiring myself out. And once I kind of got hip to this game that I would play with myself, I was like, what am I really doing? And I broke it down and broke it down and broke it down until I was like, well, when we get to the nucleus of it, you're not just thinking better thoughts, you're trying to feel better feelings. And when you're trying to feel better feelings, the only way to do that is to change your state, because emotions are energy in motion. Those are our emotions. So it really made me go, well, what changes our emotion? And it was like the breath. And so I went on a whole journey of really rediscovering what breathing really was, and allowed myself to, connect to a new life, that had my breath in mind with it. So I wasn't just breathing, because we all do that. And, when I first started talking about breathing, the first thing I heard people say was like, duh, Lisa, we can't be here if we're not breathing. And I was like, no, I get it. But what I more mean is consciously breathing, consciously taking the time to settle yourself. And an image I like to give a lot of my students when I meditate with them is the image of a bowl in the bottom of your diaphragm. And when we get angry or frustrated or things feel uncomfortable within us, that water in the bowl is splashing around. And when you want to calm yourself, visualize yourself stilling the water, making the water as calm and as still as you possibly can, so that every thought is more just like a drop in the water, and really slowing every word down so you can pick the momentum back up the way that you want to pick it back up, and speak from a place that is centered, that is grounded, and actually in harmony with your desires. So you're not manifesting more misery, but miracles.
I love that. Such great ways of doing things. One thing that I found that works for me when I'm trying to calm myself is from a literal physical perspective. If I am here and I'm just, the energy is everywhere and I'm running around crazy, then when I wash my face, I wash my face extremely slowly, or I brush my teeth really slowly. And just to do it to that extreme gets you out of that, craziness mode, because you're changing things. So I found that works, but I love the bowl idea. I'm a visual person, so it worked really well for me, just even here.
I love the idea of washing. I have a really great friend, Diana Donnelly, who is a beautiful actress. And she taught me so much when I worked with her on a play called The Octoroon when I was working at the Shaw Festival. And I was having trouble really releasing a character. And she saw me one day after rehearsal and she was just like, don't take that on. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, don't take that on. And she gave me the exercise of washing my hands or taking a shower, but preferably taking a shower after you've done a performance. But if you can't get to a shower because you're doing like a 2-show day or everything's back to back or whatever, wash your hands and let that be a symbol of washing the character off. And it was the most amazing advice, because it really did help me mentally go, all right, that's done, and then I got to feel like myself again. So it was very energetically empowering.
Again, a woman of my own heart. I love hearing everything that you're saying. The next thing that I was going to ask you, which is the last part, was you play a lot of different characters. You play characters that are on the really, well, some are on the more evil spectrum. Some are on the very hardcore, high energy, kind of negative loner type of spectrum. um, Being an empath for myself, and I have a feeling that you pick up the energy as well. So I found it difficult to dive into kind of the darkness of the character because I wasn't sure that I can cleanse all of it, and I didn't want to take that on, as you mentioned. So aside from washing and aside from using a shower, I'm a poet, so for me everything has to rhyme. I have a little rhyming ritual when I take a shower. There's a poem that I read to myself that becomes my kind of meditation for it, that washes everything away. What do you do?
To get in and out of these kind of characters, or to
Yeah,
wash it away?
to remove the energy and get back to Lisa.
Well, so there was that technique that I just shared with you, and that was what I'd done. That was about 3 years ago, and it's evolved since then, where I really don't need to take off a character anymore, because I'm just present when I'm in the character, and I'm present when I'm not.
Mhm.
So the more present that I am, the more I'm like, well, how can I be this other character? That means I would be living in the past and reliving all of those moments. So I'm not actually present. Um, but I've started working with a lot of actors, and I'm working with one person in particular, a friend of mine, and I always start each session off with a mindfulness meditation where we really become in tune with how we're feeling and become heightened, aware of that heightened sense
Mhm.
of energy that's happening within us. And and I say this from the perspective of wanting to be able to achieve consistency,
Mhm.
because I also do theater. And so it's really hard if you like, I gotta cry every night, or I've gotta get angry every night, or I've gotta be up here every night. You could be playing anyone from Cleopatra to, Lady M to Penny and, Father Comes Home from the Wars. And these are all characters that go through such huge emotions.
Mhm.
But really for me, I've learned to I chart the body.
Mhm.
So my whole thing is about recognizing what is the emotional state of being that this character goes through. What does that feel like internally? And then stay in the state of being able to move from there.
Mhm.
So at the beginning of a play, let's say, if this character is high energy or irate, and they go through an arc that takes them down to stillness and calm, or they start off and they're still and calm and they go into a place of irate. Because I believe either, a lot of times you're playing a character where you're either the winner who has to lose or the loser who has to win. You're going from one extreme to the other, but you're definitely not the same when it's done.
Right.
And so with a play, you have the advantage of momentum.
Mhm.
So you can stay in it and you can follow all the bumps and turns and twists that the character is going to go through. And when you're doing TV or doing film, then you have to be a little bit more discerning about what's happening, because you might be going in and out of states that you're like, well, now I'm here, and
Yep.
that's before this happens, and then now I'm here, and that's after that happens. And
Mhm.
you need to really have an emotional map to it. And so in particular, working on a scene with a friend of mine, and I said, what is this character feeling? And she said, well, she's professing how committed she is. And her struggle with playing this character in this scene was, but I feel like I'm getting defensive, and that's not what I want to play.
Mhm.
And so I said, well, let's take it off of the thoughts and what we're calling it, and I want you to tell me what this character physically feels. And she's like, well, she's, you know, she's passionate and she's driven and she's intense and intent on making her point. And I was like, okay, what does that feel like in the body?
Yep.
And then we went through and she was like, okay, so I want you to do a couple of check-ins with me. Check in with your feet, check in with your knees, check in with your lower diaphragm, your sit bone area, check in with your shoulders, the back of your neck, and right between your eyes and your jaw. Mm-hmm. And I want you to be aware that when we're in those heightened sense of a heightened state of beings, we're actually quite loose. Mm-hmm. We're not tense because we feel very free to cry. We feel when we cry as human beings, we do not get tight.
Yeah. We
actually get so loose that it all just falls out.
Yeah.
And more specifically, especially, you know, actors being able to cry is like a big one. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, here's the thing. I was on set and I couldn't cry. And that really made me be like, why? What was standing in my way? Mm-hmm. Judgment and fear. Yeah. And when I was having my own personal moment, I realized halfway through a panic attack where I'm crying my eyes out on my floor by myself in my apartment. And I just stopped and I said, now, could you do this if the cameras were rolling? Because that's what they want to see. This is what they want to see. They want to see this moment, you. What's happening in your body right now, Lisa? Do you feel any tension anywhere? No. Do you feel tight anywhere? No. What are you feeling? The back of my neck is very loose. My toes are free. My shoulders are relaxed. My throat is open. And specifically around my eyes, where I was crying, very loose. Very, very loose. And then when I went to go do a scene, I was aware of how tight I was making the muscles underneath my eyes. Mm. And so I was like, well, what if I just went and did a scene, bless you. What if I went and did a scene where my point of focus, and if somebody doesn't know what that is, I'll explain that in a minute, where my point of focus was keeping everything relaxed and open. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was fighting against in the scene when I was saying the words, and see where I go. Every time I was able to cry. Wow. And so I did the same exercise with my friend. And I was just like, you want to tighten up here and you want to sound like you're being emotional. But there's a very big difference when someone is staying on the whole beat and knowing that everything needs to stay open. So it actually forces you to get more and more emotional. Yeah. Because nothing's closing in and you have all the space in the world to keep the emotion flowing. Because that's what we do in real life, in real time. Yeah. And so she did the scene and it was I got chills, I got goosebumps. And I was like, how did that feel for you? She's like, I want to do it again. And then we did it again and it was even more expansive. Her voice was even more grounded. I was like, and you definitely don't sound like you're being defensive. You sound committed. And then we did it one more time because she's like, we do it again. And I was just like, now I want to point something out to you. Playing this kind of character should be that kind of fun. Mm-hmm. It should make you be like, ooh, let's do it again. Yeah. If you're walking away from a character being like, then you're it's not craft, mm-hmm. in my opinion. And not to say that roles aren't going to cost, but they shouldn't continue to cost when you're done. They should cost in the moment when you have to give it all. You should be able to, but a really great performance should give you energy, actually. And it should make you feel like, I want to do it again. Otherwise, why are we doing this? We're not masochists. You know what I mean? Yeah. So just to go back, for anybody who's never done point of focus work is when you're not worried about the text because you've done that work. That's the easy part, learning your lines and having them memorized, knowing your beats, easy part, done. Point of focus is when you take it off of all of that and you go, my point of focus is I'm ice and I'm melting. And you have to fight against that in your body because doing exercises like that really helps an actor fight with something. And when we watch people in real life, in real time, they're always fighting against something that's happening inside of them. It's like, I don't want to cry, but I have to say what I have to say. Or I'm nervous to speak, but I'm going to speak even though my voice is shaking. Like they still have to cut through something. So if you're focused on the words, you're not really cutting through anything. And it's not really trying to do anything to anybody else. So it's important to have point of focus exercises, especially once you're like running it like drills, and you don't need to be like, what's my line again? When you don't need to be doing any of those things. Point of focus work really helps to ground you and center you and give you something tangible you can fight against, but still give to your scene partner.
Lisa, I want to talk to you for another 3.5 hours. I know we can today, but please come back so we can continue these discussions. And by the way, people, when I was talking about flying, that's what flying looks like. So, thank you so much. I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful for you sharing your wisdom. And I want everybody to watch it, pause, rewatch it, and start applying, which is the most important part.
Oh, this is so much fun. I thank you for having me on. I love talking acting. I love talking the craft, and I love talking self-love. So I'm really excited. I'm going to check out your book because I just read everything in regards to what everybody's talking about with this subject because it's so important and everyone's perspective kind of adds a little bit more to our own. So I'm always like, ooh, that's a good one. And then it just propels you even further into a beautiful realm of yourself. So thank you for having me.
I'll send you a link to Focus and Shine Out, which is the name of that of the clothing line.
Right on.
See what you like. I'll send you.
Oh, thank you.
So and thanks to everybody for watching. I know that you're watching this after Thanksgiving, and I hope that whatever you're feeling on the day of Thanksgiving, you take that for the rest of the days with you.
Ashe.